What is up, everybody? Welcome back into Tide Talk Live. Stacy Blackwood, joined by Jake Thomas and Joe Will, as we bring you a live edition of the show. I'm a little under the weather, so I won't be as active tonight, but Jake and Joe are going to help pull us through. I'm just going to be here for some moral support and for a few thoughts and opinions along the way. But first of all, Jake, Joe, how you guys doing tonight?
Man, doing great. Getting a good start to the week. Had a lot of good news that come out, and we're going to talk about this weekend. Joe, how was your weekend, and how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. My weekend was pretty low key. Didn't do too much. Like you said, a lot of Alabama news. We already got a couple people in here. I'm sure some people thought the news was better than others, but we'll break that down. But
Right.
Just excited to finally know who our coordinators are.
Yeah, I'm just excited all that is over with now, and we can kind of move on to basically spring practice is like 6 weeks away, I think 7 weeks away. So before we know it, the guys will be out there, participating in spring ball, and that'll bring us a whole new set of topics to discuss. So I'm excited to kind of get to that point and just really talk football instead of all the outside noise that's been going on over the last few weeks with, Pete Golden moving on to Ole Miss and, Bill O'Brien moving on to New England. But now we have Tommy Rees as our offensive coordinator and Kevin Steele as our defensive coordinator. And we're going to talk all about, those two guys, obviously, and how they kind of fit in with the program and what they kind of mean for the program moving forward. The chat is already booming. We got guys all in there. Joel says, "What's up?"
What up, Joe?
Cassie says, "Hey."
Hey, babe.
Dean Cloud is in the chat saying "Roll Tide, roll," but the
Roll
Bama
Tide.
Standard is in the chat.
What
What's up,
up?
Bama Standard? And Dean says, "Excited to see the defense that's not afraid to hit somebody." Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about both obviously Reese and Steele in tonight's show, and of course we want to hear from you guys in the chat as well. Your thoughts and opinions on the two hires and how it's going to affect the program. But before we dive too much into that, follow the links in the description below for BetUS. Sign up today and receive that 125% bonus on your first deposit, and also follow the watch get free shipping when you make a purchase following our link. So make sure you jump down there and take advantage of those great opportunities from us here at Tide Talk Live. Jim McQuain says, "Roll Tide, gentlemen, roll Tide."
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Thank you guys so much for being here and watching our show and being alive in the chat. That's always a lot of fun. It kind of keeps things not so serious, I guess, in a way. Kind of can bounce off different topics and different thoughts and opinions. So excited to read everybody's thoughts and opinions on this topic for sure. But Jake and Joe, I want to start. Let's start with Tommy Rees on the offensive side of the ball. Just your initial thoughts on the hire and how you think he is going to do as the offensive coordinator in Tuscaloosa.
All right, so I'll go first, and I'll hand it over to Joe. But my initial thought is when I heard that he was going to be the coach, the offense coordinator, I got to thinking, looking at it, and I said, what did he do at Notre Dame? What did he run, and everything? And we had talked about, Stacy, that it seems like we're trying to move back to more physical on the offensive line, being more physical on the offensive line. And you see that, Joe. You see that with the guys we're bringing in, in this recruiting class. I mean, Miles McVay is a huge dude. Caden Proctor, huge. I mean, and then we still got some that's there like Tyler Booker. I mean, huge guys who's going to be physical up front. Now we're going to have, the running backs. We got two great running backs come in, and I mean, it's going to be absolutely just ground and pound, I feel like, at Alabama, especially early on, I believe, to get whoever the quarterback's going to be, to get their feet wet in the system, for the first couple of games. We have some veteran leadership at running back we can lean on with Roydell Williams and Jason McClellan. And then you have the two-headed monster coming in, that can, as freshmen, that can play as well. So I'm excited to see how he does. And I don't care about how the stats were up at Notre Dame last year. that has nothing to do because they don't. He's not going to have the type. He didn't have the type of players there as he does here.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying about the Tommy Rees hire. Initially, I was kind of shocked, and I wasn't a huge fan of the hire originally, but I kind of did some research and kind of changed my tune. The first thing that was important to me with offensive coordinator hire is to hire somebody that was young, young offensive mind. Nowadays, that's kind of just the way it goes, in the NFL with Sean McVay and Mike McDaniel and some of these young and up-and-coming coaches. And you want a young offensive mind, not to take away from, coordinators have been around for a while because experience is important as well. But I do think getting a fresh face and there's somebody like Tommy Rees who isn't too far removed from playing the game. I mean, he was the quarterback at Notre Dame, I think, like 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, my timing could be off on that. So I like the Rees hire. You got to look to like the quarterbacks that he worked with. You could sit there and be like, oh, statistically they were bottom half in this category. They didn't do too hot in this category. But if you look at the quarterbacks that he coached, he was coaching Jack Cohen, Drew Pine, Tyler Buckner, Ian Book, and he still was able to get them into the playoffs. And I mean, they got their butts beat by Bama, but he's young, and I like the fact that, like you mentioned too, kind of get back to the quote unquote Bama standard, smash mouth football. A lot of motions with the running backs and tight ends. That's something that we're used to seeing from Alabama, and we've kind of gotten away from. And I think he's going to bring it back, and him and Saban will gel pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you guys. I really like the hire because of the young nature of Tommy Rees, and he's kind of got that young mind. He's not too far removed from playing, like Joe mentioned. That's important as well. And maybe the biggest winner in all this is Maryland tight end transfer C.J. Dupree. We all know how well Notre Dame has used tight ends over the last few years. The guy who's with the Bears right now, his name's is skipping me right now, but he did really well at Notre Dame. Of course, Michael Mayer, maybe the best tight end in college football outside of Brock Bowers over the last couple seasons. So maybe a guy like C.J. Dupree is going to benefit the most from having a guy like Tommy Rees calling the plays. And we all know that having a good tight end is a good, kind of safety valve for a first-year quarterback. And, regardless if it's Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson or whoever else, maybe even a Eli Holstein or a Dylan Lonergan, regardless, they're going to be a first-year starting quarterback. So making them comfortable is going to be, the biggest job for Tommy Rees, especially early on in the season. And it doesn't start out easy. You got Middle Tennessee State, then you got to host Texas. So we're going to find out a lot about Tommy Rees pretty early on in his tenure at Alabama when he has to face the Longhorns, who really did a good job against Bill O'Brien and Bryce Young last season over there in Austin. So it's not going to be an easy start for Tommy Rees, but everything I've gathered, he is looking forward to the challenge there in Tuscaloosa, developing young quarterbacks like Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson, and the two freshmen that's going to be coming in. So I think the mindset for Nick Saban when he was making this hire was, look, we've recruited the offensive line a little bit different over the last couple seasons. We've made the commitment to be more physical up front. We've made the commitment to recruit some high-quality backs. Let's get a little bit back to the more physical brand of football. And Tommy Rees just kind of fits right in with that philosophy. And I think he's really going to surprise a lot of people with how good of a play caller he is.
Absolutely. And Joe, I want to go back. You talked about his concepts. I saw a video, one of his plays, his play design. It was their bowl game against South Carolina. He motioned the running back out left, and the linebacker followed him, so he knew it was man on man. So he motioned him back in, and then they snapped the ball, and the running back went right, and the two receivers on this side ran like little slants on the inside. So there was so much confusion for that running or that linebacker. He got lost in the shuffle, and they got a first down out of it. But just for that little play, I mean, motion is the name of the game in college football. If you don't have any kind of motion you can't get a mismatch like that. So I'm excited to see what he can do at Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. And I also have this little nugget that I found too. Notre Dame utilized 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, and 1 back on 302 plays compared to Alabama's 166. So kind of going back to the ground and pound, 2 tight end, 1 running back. We're gonna run the ball up the gut and blow you off the line, which is reminds me of 2012 Alabama, and obviously we know how great that team was.
Yeah, I want to say that Rees was a freshman that season for Notre Dame, so he's kind of got a taste of what Alabama is capable of when we know that they're running that brand of football. So I'm excited about the Rees hire. It was really, if you go back and look, and people's not going to remember this because people live in the moment all the time, especially on Twitter. Twitter is a place where I have to be careful or I will be in an argument every second of every day because people are just so over the top and dramatic with their thoughts. And look, I'm for everybody having their own opinion, but I'm also, just because you have an opinion doesn't mean you're right.
Right.
And most of the time people are not on Twitter. It is unbelievable the comments and the posts that have been made on Twitter over the past week since the hires of Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele, who you can say without question are completely oblivious to the situation in Tuscaloosa, oblivious to I mean, how can you be oblivious to what Coach Saban has done?
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
I don't know how you can sit there and logically think, yeah, me throwing shade at the greatest college coach of all time is the smart thing to do. It's the logical thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I fall into that trap sometimes, obviously, because, people go on Twitter and they're so reactive, and you kind of have to take, like I said earlier with the Rees hire, take a step back and look at, hey, he might not have done well here, but he has better recruits, better coaching. Like, you just have to take a step back and look at the whole situation and not just immediately tweet the first thing that comes to your mind. And like I said, I'm guilty of it as well, but it's something that I'm trying to get better with.
Well, look, but you recognize that sometimes you overreact. There's people that are not willing to admit that they're overreacting.
No.
And that's the frustrating part. And when people take shots or when people defend Coach Saban, then the other side is saying, well, just because he's won 7 national championships doesn't mean that he's not capable of making the wrong decision. You're right, but that means he deserves the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, all I know is Coach Saban didn't ask me one single time what I thought about the coordinator positions, and I'm pretty sure he didn't ask a single soul on Twitter.
Nope, he didn't.
And so, majority of Twitter bases their reactions on hot takes and minimal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the fact. That's wrong one. But yes, the Bama Standard hits the nail on the head. That is basically what it is. It's we call them casuals is what we call them. The casual fan doesn't do enough research, is not really in tuned enough or well enough with the program to understand fits and schemes and things of that nature. And look, do you really think that Tommy Rees would be coaching at Notre Dame if he didn't know about football?
Exactly.
He was Brian Kelly's first choice.
Right. That's what
at LSU.
Right,
okay.
Yeah.
I think everybody that's watching this and everybody in Twitterverse will agree that Brian Kelly is a heck of a football coach.
Mm-hmm.
He hired Tommy Rees as a 27-year-old offensive coordinator. You mean to tell me that dude don't know ball?
Right. Exactly.
It's frustrating when, and that we're really kind of getting off topic here, and that's my fault. But it's really frustrating. And I had to send a couple tweets out last night, kind of trying to calm people down a little bit when the Kevin Steele hire was announced, and it's frustrating that fans are willing to be so reactive without having all the facts, and what it does, it creates negativity around the program that is not necessary.
Right.
I think it's okay to have, like, obviously everybody has their own opinion, but the people too that go out and they attack somebody else's opinion, which is something I've been seeing a lot with basketball, but also with Alabama football. We're all entitled to our own opinions. doesn't mean somebody's right or wrong. I mean, you might know more about something than another person, but you don't have to go about it in a hostile way. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, and I can come off pretty snark a lot of times, and I can't help it. Jake's known me all my life. I can't help it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that we should probably defer to Nick Saban when making football decisions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
that dude has forgotten more about coaching football and hiring football coaches than anybody else on Twitter, on YouTube, on wherever will ever know in their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Saban does ask the opinion of one of our co-hosts. Well, that's because you have a bunch of former players on your
right.
Let's
Saban doesn't want to hear from us.
You know what we're trying to come across, Justin.
Right. Yeah. But I want to go back to Dean's comment as well. Up a little bit ago, he said it's like some of those tweeters know more about college football than Coach Saban knows. Exactly. I mean, they think they know. Right. Exactly. That's. Like Stacey hit the nail on the head. Saban knows more about college football and probably has lost more knowledge of college football than we'll ever know. So
right, and that doesn't mean that he is not free from making mistakes. But it does mean that he's built up equity. Is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the way the last 2 years have gone, leaving a bad taste in people's mouths, they're kind of on the edge of their seats here when it comes to hires, thinking we need to get this hired and perfectly get to be the way I want it to be or the person that I want them to hire. And I think we need to take a step back and be like, the last couple of years haven't gone the way we wanted them to. I mean, we played in the national championship 2 years ago, but I think people are just feeling like with NIL and all the other stuff going on, transfer portal, that Saban's losing touch, which it's not true at all. And I think people are losing their minds in questioning him because this is a complete recent thing. This isn't something that we're used to seeing from fans.
Yeah. And I just want to say real quick, Stacey, before you say that thing, but Joe, I was going to fill you in. When me and Stacey had talked about before, when they was talking about, going to the spread offenses and all that, and you had to have a great quarterback to get the ball out, Saban at that time was like, you really want college football to go to this, this style. Said, I really don't want to go like that, but if you want me to change my ways, I'll do it. And he did it. And look what we brought in. We brought in like Matt Jones, Bryce Young. And, anytime NIL is the same way, transfer portal, he's like, if you want me to change the way I coach, I will adjust things and I'll still continue to beat you. That's what he's done. And he continues to do it to this day. So.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, I want to go back to the certain point that fans, especially on Twitter, and that's where I spend most of my time is Twitter. I'm not really on Facebook that often, but fans on Twitter, they act like guys like Bill O'Brien, guys like Pete Golden, that they don't know how to coach football. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Just because it doesn't work out perfectly doesn't mean that the coaches don't know what they're doing.
Right.
A lot of it is fit and how their style of coaching, resonates with the players on the roster. That means Bill O'Brien does not work for Belichick and Nick Saban without knowing how to coach football.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Pete Golden doesn't work for Nick Saban and then Lane Kiffin without knowing how to coach college football.
Mm-hmm.
So, right. I mean, it's about fit. So when people, and that's why I hate the negativity on Twitter, and it's never going to stop because that's just kind of the culture that we've created over time. It is just constant negativity. But it does no good to get on social media and bash Bill O'Brien, bash Pete Golden, bash Kevin Steele, and bash Tommy Rees. Because you know what? Recruits see that, players see that, family members of players see that, and they're like, I don't want no part of that.
Right.
So you're not doing any good for the Alabama brand by getting on Twitter and acting like you know more about football than Coach Saban does.
Yeah, they'll bash their own players too. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I just, and that's never going to go away. That's just kind of a pet peeve of mine. It's so frustrating. And I'm not saying you always got to, talk about how great they are. I think you should always tell the truth. But I'm just because you're telling the truth doesn't mean you got to be a jerk about it
Right.
and point fingers. Look, Pete Golden is a heck of a college football coach. He knows some defensive. I've been told that Pete Golden had the most impressive interview with Coach Saban that he ever remembers. You know why? Because he can get on a board and tell you all about some defensive schematics and draw up plays. He just didn't fit at Alabama for whatever reason.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
and I
it.
think that kind of goes back to, I mean, what Joel said here. They know how to coach. It just doesn't fit for us. Bill O'Brien as well, for as much, credit as I've given him, he did pretty well other than, his most recent stint in the NFL. He did pretty well at Penn State. He's done well with the Patriots. He just might not be a great college coach when it comes to calling plays because, when you're sitting there watching games on Saturdays, a lot of the plays that he calls are kind of similar plays that you would see in an NFL game. And that's just doesn't really work in college, or it doesn't work as well in certain circumstances. And the same thing kind of goes for Pete Golding. So I wish these guys well. I mean, I wish Bill O'Brien well at Patriots. Right. I mean, he's going to have Mac Jones. So I want the two of those guys to work well together. And then Pete Golding, who knows, how he'll do at Ole Miss. I'm sure he'll do pretty well. I don't want him to do well against us.
Right.
But, I wish the two of those guys well. I don't have no ill intentions towards them, even though I've gotten frustrated about the way that they've called plays this year and in the past.
I think it's fair to get frustrated. I just don't think it's very fair to insult them the way that people do on Twitter. Not even so much for Pete Golding or Bill O'Brien's sake, but for the university as a whole. It just puts the whole university in a negative light that's not necessary.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's true too, and but that goes for them as well. I mean, what kind of message are you sending to potential recruits when everybody is constantly bashing the coaches? You're sending the message that, hey, you don't need to go there.
Yeah, we need to do better as a fan base.
Yeah,
I agree, 100%.
We're so spoiled; it's ridiculous. That's not even the right word. Spoiled is not. I mean, we're past spoiled.
Yeah,
we're ruined, as my grandmother would say.
Ruined. Yes. Oh yes.
But all right, look, we've talked about Tommy Rees a little bit. We'll touch a little bit on Kevin Steele real quick. Look, I don't want to say excited because that's a little bit of overstatement, but I understand and got a little excited when I heard that Kevin Steele was the front runner and he was probably going to take the job, simply because of the chemistry that him and Coach Saban have, and how well he's already kind of knows the Saban playbook and the Saban defense, and how well his attitude, his coaching style is going to fit in down there at Alabama, and what Coach Saban's trying to kind of how was that spelled? Good luck. I have no idea.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I ain't got a clue.
It's supposed to be ruined, but it's the redneck way of saying ruined.
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 Or burnt. Yeah.
I don't know. Sure, we'll go with that.
Right. Yeah.
That looks right.
Yeah.
But I think Kevin Steele is outside of Jamie Pruitt is a fantastic hire because of the camaraderie that he has with Coach Saban and the familiarity that he has with the Saban defense and the kind of that old school coaching mentality.
Yeah, we talked about getting more physical on the offensive line. How about getting more physical on the defense? And this is what Kevin Steele is bringing. He was our linebackers coach in 2014, and you think about some of the linebackers that he got to coach on that 2014 team. We had physical guys, at linebacker then. We had Reggie Ragland, Reuben Foster, Trey Priest, Tim Williams. I mean, in 2014, he had a monster crew, at linebacker and some very hard hitters. We're fixing to get back to more physicality, I guess is the right word, to say, on defense. And I'm all for it. We've had a few guys to be kind of heavy hitters the last couple of years, like Xavier McKinney will come up and take a good shot. DeMarco Hellens. But I mean, as a whole unit, you really didn't have that one guy who was like just absolutely like you would the change the game over, kind of like Reuben Foster did. So I'm ready to get more physical on the defensive side, and I believe Kevin Steele's defense is just about to get physical. I mean, look at the talent he's got. He's going to be coaching with this year.
Yeah, I like the Kevin Steele hire. Kind of offensive coordinator. Nobody really liked the Kevin Steele hire from what I saw. Saw a lot of memes on Twitter, people joking around about it. But we're talking about all the experience that Nick Saban has. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who's been coaching for 39 years. He was at Auburn. This is his third stint at Alabama. I'm trying to think off the top of my head where else he's been. I think he's been through a few SEC teams. But you want a guy like that has a lot of experience. I think, too, that – I mean, we've seen rumors circulating already that this hire is kind of a placeholder hire for when Alabama is able to bring Jeremy Pruitt back to be their defensive coordinator long term. I mean, rumors and speculation only mean so much. We've seen throughout this hiring process it changed about 15, 20 times, or even more than that, honestly. But I think it's a good hire, and kind of like you said, just getting back to that physical Alabama defense, which is something that I feel like has been missing kind of ever since Kirby Smart left, and more recently since Pete Golding's taken over. Just kind of get back to that hard hitting, tough Alabama defense that we're all so used to seeing. Kind of just like the offense, physicality should be a buzzword for this team kind of going into this season.
Absolutely, Joe. And you talked about different stints he's been at. His last stint, Kevin Steele, he was at Miami, and you talked about we talked about Rees being at Notre Dame. I guess that's the right way to say it. But anyway, the talent level he had at Miami. Al Golden did a terrible job, as recruiting. He got some guys, but and then Manny Diaz. They didn't really recruit great guys. Alabama recruits studs, and this is what Kevin Steele is going to have on this defense. I mean, we talked about the linebacker room. I mean, you got Lawson who's fixing to come up, and he's going to be a playmaker next year. We still got Dallas Turner coming back. So these guys are going to get a heck of a coach coming in and is going to work with these guys. And this defense is about to be fun.
Yeah, and Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast says Miami's about to pull Jim Leonard. I wonder if he had a chance. I'm assuming if he had a chance, he's asking if he had a chance with the Alabama job. Probably not really, because Saban doesn't really hire defensive coaches that are not familiar with his scheme and his system. And Leonard's never ran Coach Saban's system, so that was probably a really outside option for Coach Saban. But like I said, you get Kevin Steele and you get a guy who knows the system, who knows the philosophy, who knows the play calls, who knows the checks. He knows everything. You ain't got to teach him anything. He just plugs right in, and he knows the defense, and that's huge. There's no learning curve for the coach. And look, I think there's probably going to be a couple more changes made on the defensive staff before the start of the season, maybe even before the start of spring practice. And maybe even before the end of this week. There's all sorts of rumors going around, and I don't want to get on here and talk about rumors because they are that right now, just rumors. So, but there are going to be some more changes, I suspect, over the next few weeks on the defensive side of the football for Alabama. And I just feel like Kevin Steele if you can't get Jeremy Pruitt, and you want to get back to more of that old school Alabama defense, Kevin Steele's probably the next best option. So I'm really happy with the hire, and I really think that Alabama's working their way back to kind of – the identity's really never been gone, but just kind of recreating that identity and working back to that Bama standard.
Yeah, and I want to mention, we've talked about in the past couple of weeks on this show, we really love the hire of Austin Armstrong. Maybe, Kevin Steele was brought in to help build him up and help groom him, per se, for the DC job on in the future, potentially. I don't know that for a fact, but you have an old school guy teaching a young guy, kind of like what Muschamp is doing at Georgia with Glenn Schumann. So you could potentially see that here as well.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm doing the best I can to hang on. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm under the weather. My throat is not going to hang on much longer, but we want to stay just as long as the fans will be with us. We've had a great show so far in the chat. He said, Jim says, so you're saying Steele wouldn't drop Will Anderson into coverage? I hope to God not. I don't understand that. I never will understand that. Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, if they dropped into pass coverage one time last year, that was one too many times.
Yes. Dallas Turner needs to be blitzing quarterbacks early and often in every single play. Just my personal opinion. This coming up year.
Joe, you got anything else to add on Kevin Steele or even Tommy Rees?
No, I don't. I think we did a good job covering that. We went on a couple little side rants, but I'm just happy to have some new coordinators, and I think Saban is playing chess, fooling the rest of us.
Oh yeah, it's chess, not checkers, buddy. That's what it is.
Yeah, no doubt. And like we said, look, we would have went longer if I wasn't under the weather tonight, but I can't hold on much longer. My voice is about to go out, and I've got to get in the bed because I do not feel great at all. But I really appreciate everybody that was in the chat tonight. It was a lot of fun to kind of talk about the new hires on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball as well. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, jump in the description below, follow the link to BetUS and sign up today and receive that 125% sign-on bonus there. And also hit the link to Latour and Watches, and you receive free shipping on that first purchase of a watch. Thank you, Joe. I hope I feel better soon too. I feel like I'm getting worse by the minute, but I'll be better sooner. Hopefully soon. I hope, because it's not good right now. But thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a lot of fun. We'll be back hopefully later this week with some pre-recorded shows. Maybe looking at the tight end room, the offensive line room. We've broke down the other offensive position groups already so far. So we're excited about that, and we're excited about covering what else, all the tight end, the offensive line, and obviously the defensive side of the ball as we head into spring practice in just a few weeks. So we're excited about that. I know Jake is. I know Joe is. And we can't wait to get back here real soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, roll tide.
Roll tide.
Roll tide.